We are at Taylor Farm in Londonderry, Vermont, and I am honored to have my guest Stefan Schernthaner with me today. And he's playing an instrument that I imagine very few people have heard. This is something that just makes some of the most lovely sound, literally brings tears to my eyes when I hear it. So I'm very honored to have Stefan here with you today, and let's hear some more of his magical saw playing. Stefan, thank you so much for coming this morning. We hopefully are doing a small series of interviews with people around the community, and you immediately came to mind. We have both lived in this community for a long time, and it really wasn't until a few months ago that I got introduced to you, and through our mutual interest in music. And I would say we've become very good friends in a very short period of time. So I'm thrilled to have you join us here today. And I want to hear a little bit about your background. You grew up in Austria and came to this country as a skier at Stratton Mountain, and also formed or were a part of the group known as the Stratton Mountain Boys. So I want to hear all of that. Tell me a little bit about your childhood in Austria.
In Austria, a small village called Maria Alm. I was born there and I went to school, and then we have a lot of tradition, typical Austrian tradition, and one of the tradition is a music band, village band. And it is the aim of every little boy to become a member of the village band, because you get you get to show off your talent, and you get to see people, and it's an important thing. And so I was working very hard on music when I was 12 years old, and wanted to be a part of the band, the Maria Alm Village Band, you know. And I was fairly talented on the instruments, and so it didn't take me maybe a year, and I became a member, a very young member at 12 years old of the band. It was not really good to everybody, because the grown-ups, some of them, they were jealous that little kids like that are already playing with them, you know. They kind of, you know, had little...
Were you literally the youngest member of the band?
I was not the youngest, but I was one of the youngest ones, yeah. There were two guys, the son from the Kapellmeister. They were even younger than me, or pretty much the same age, you know. And so we did that, and it was really great, and I kept learning a lot. And then time comes, and military is a must, you know. It's mandatory that everybody goes to the military. And I was doing a lot of music already at the time, so I figured I might go to the military band. So I had an audition, and they took me to the military band, which again was great opportunity in learning the instruments. And so I progressed more and more.
And what instrument were you playing at that point?
I started out with an E-flat trumpet, which is, you know, just doing the oompa, 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 and so very simple, you know. But then I got more into it, into the B trumpet, and then into Flügelhorn, which is the melody-carrying instrument of the band, you know. But it was very good. It was just kind of step up, step up, step up, and keep learning and stuff. And I also had the opportunity to go to music school in Salzburg while I was in the military. It was all good, you know. But then I never thought that I was going to do music professionally, like what I ended up doing with the Stratton Mountain Boys. That was totally by accident, you know. Because I was also a good skier at the time, and tried to get into the Olympics, but I wasn't good enough, so I was kind of edged out. There was a little bit of politics involved in it too. It was like all the time, you know. It was hard to get in there, and plain I wasn't good enough. So I became a trainer because I did have a lot of miles on skiing, and so I became trainer in the Bundessportschule Hintermoos, and I was ski instructor and racing coach, you know. And that racing coach thing was very interesting, and I got to be able to teach some of the most successful women skiers ever. One of them is Annemarie Bröll, the other one is Monika Kaserer, and I taught these girls in 1967. And in '67 they came into the A team, the Olympic team of Austria, and it kind of freed me. And I wanted to go and do the Austrian certification of ski instructor, and I needed to have foreign language skill. And that was not possible back then. You know, we didn't have that in school because we were just born in the village and didn't get any high schooling. So the best thing was to just get a job as a ski instructor in America. And that was a big thing at the time because, number one, the American dollar was good, and number two, America needed those Austrian ski instructors in order to get their skiing developed and to get it going, you know. And I immediately got a job as a racing coach here in America.
Now, how did you make that connection? Who?
There is a guy in Maria Alm. He was my neighbor, actually, and he went to America and he became a ski school director, and his name is Alois Meyer, and he was the director of Pico Peak. And so he was vacationing in Maria Alm that summer, and I went straight to him and said, "Louis, do you need somebody? I'm willing to work as an instructor or as a coach." And he already heard about me at the time, you know. And so, yeah, absolutely, super, let's do it, you know. And that was in 1968. And so I came to Pico Peak and spent 2 years there coaching the girls from Green Mountain College at the time.
Wow. Huh.
So that was.
And how was your English at that point?
Hardly any. It was not. It was not really all that necessary. Oh, we had some interesting stuff, you know. The ski instructors, we got together, and we had to build our own living quarter, so that we had our rooms and stuff. You know, they had us build it, you know, and so we ended up being together. Jakob Schweiger was the other guy, and me, both from Austria, you know.
Was he a childhood friend as well?
No, actually, we just met ski instructing at the ski instructor course, and we met a year before that. And we came with the same plane over here and were picked up by our boss, Louis Meyer, in Boston. And
this was a huge deal for you. I mean, you'd never...
Oh, yeah. I was never on a plane before. I was never out of the country before. And it was really interesting. And we enjoyed that flight and had a blast. And then we were picked up by Louis at the airport. And then he drove us to a very fancy restaurant, Pier 4, it's called, in Boston, you know. And he just wanted to get the kick out of seeing us in that restaurant. Yeah. And we ordered lobsters, naturally. We had no idea about that, you know, but he got the kick out of it. We got a big plastic with a lobster hung around, and there we went, and we were eating the lobster. What a mess. And but we had so much fun. It was absolutely great. And I said to myself, that's it. I love it. That is my lifestyle. Yes, and it didn't matter what comes afterwards, you know. Yeah. That was the first great impression about America.
What a great story. Just to back up a minute, tell me a little bit about Maria Alma, and what did your parents do? What was the home life like?
My parents, my dad was a carpenter, and my mom was housewife, and they started building the house, we had an old little shack there, and my dad was not happy with that. He wanted to provide a nice house for the family. And we were 3 brothers and sisters. I was the only boy, and I had 2 sisters. One sister is a year younger than I am, Matilde, and the other sister is 12 years younger, Traudi. And Traudi lives in Switzerland right now. She's married there. And Matilde, she lives on the farm. She ran the farm with her husband. Meanwhile, her son already took over the farm, and his name is Sigi Herzog, and he is the most successful schnapps maker of Austria. So, anyway, we have good spirit there.
I guess so. That sounds great.
And so, yeah, my dad was working as a carpenter, and when I got out of school, I wanted to actually do something with electronics. I was always interested in building electric motors and working with electronics, but there was just no job available. So my dad said to me, well, why don't you maybe learn to be a carpenter? I could help you a lot, because he was working as a carpenter. And then, yes, I signed up. I was 15 years old, and we had that typical apprenticeship, you know, where as a young guy you go and you work hard and you go a little bit to school, like 6 weeks every year you go to school to learn the trade. But in general, you know, you work there, you know, and my dad was teaching me a lot, you know, so that was that, and that was the summer work, and that's why it made a lot of sense to do the skiing in the winter. There was not so much other work, you know.
Sure.
So I did basically both of them.
A man of many talents.
I kind of forced into it, you know.
Yes.
No, but I was always interested in a lot of different things. I didn't want to get stuck with just one thing.
Yeah.
And that was with music too. When I was in the military and I was in music school, and then I thought to myself, oh my God, being in an orchestra and doing that all your life and then retire and die, that is not what I want to do. You know, so I wanted to go out in the world, but I never had in mind that I would go to America and stay like 45 years or what, you know. And I don't feel like I did that, because I'm always back and forth. I never lost touch with my homeland, Austria.
Yeah.
And though I love America very much, because with my music and my marketing that I did, I traveled all over the country. I added up, I traveled about 2.5 million miles in the last 40 years. And that was usually with my van and the trailer in the back, and we were going to every major city in America.
Oh, boy. Well, we'll get to that. But how old were you actually when you came to the States?
How old?
Yeah.
I was 22 years old.
Yeah. And you went to Pico first?
I went to Pico first, and I was up there for 1 season, and I really liked it. And so in the summer I went back to Austria, and I did my carpentry work again, and the next was, winter comes, I'm ready to go again, you know. So I did another season in Pico Peak, you know. And then back to Austria. And meanwhile, Emo Henrich from Straten, he learned about me through other ski instructors that were also from Maria Alm. One is Hermann Herzog, the other one is Gustl Herzog, the other one is Alois Eder, you know. They learned about me being a good skier and playing music. It would fit perfect to go to Straten, you know. So Emo approached me, and he showed up in Austria at my home and said, hey, would you be interested in doing that? And he sold it to me that I could not say no, you know.
What an interesting time it was. These ski areas were developing here, and yet nobody in this country really even knew how to ski. So you were a shoe-in for the...
It was a perfect fit for us, you know, and I found it was absolutely fantastic for all the ski instructors to just do that, and the way we were appreciated by the American people was incredible. I never had a feeling like that before. It was really super.
So what year was it that you came to Stratton?
In 1970.
Okay. And Stratton started in 65, is that right?
Started in 62.
62, okay. All right. And did Emo already have the idea of the Stratton Mountain Boys? Were they already performing?
They were already performing, yeah. They were performing in full force. There were like 6 musicians, but they never had a trumpet player yet. You know? And so that's what they wanted, and so I jumped right in as a trumpet player.
So much of your life has just been these pieces that fit perfectly into place, it seems.
Yeah, everything was just a perfect fit. It just, you know, it was just always fun, and I always made my hobby be my job too.
Yeah.
You know, and had an absolutely great life doing it.
Tell me about your skiing career. You are a very notable freestyle skier. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I started with racing, and I was shooting for the Olympics, and I just couldn't quite make it, you know. And then it was, at the time, freestyle came about with the first guy that did an inverted maneuver, a somersault on skis, was Stein Eriksen from Norway. He was an Olympian. He was a gold medal winner in the Olympics. And they showed a newspaper clip in Austria where the Stein Eriksen is upside down. And I looked at it, and I was a good gymnast at the time. I looked at this picture, and I said, I can do that. And the next day I went out, and I built myself a jump, and I went and I did a somersault.
Oh, boy.
And
no wonder you didn't kill yourself.
No, I never made a mistake.
Yeah.
It was just, I landed, I went through the air perfect, I landed perfect, everything was just perfect.
And this was in Austria?
That was in Austria, that was in 1962, yeah. And so I kept doing that, doing the skiing. Every now and then I just had a jump built and did a somersault, you know. Yeah, I didn't do a lot, but then when I came to Piko, I had a jump set up there, and I did somersaults occasionally, you know. And then there were 2 guys from Stratton, Herman Göllner and Tommy Leroy, and they were doing somersaults also. And since it was a new sport in America, you know, the people really liked it.
Yeah.
And then with freestyle, it started really going in 1971. We had the first national championship of freestyle skiing. And that was sponsored by Chevrolet, the Chevrolet division from General Motors. They sponsored it, and they gave a first prize, a Chevrolet Corvette Stingray. And being that as a prize, it pulled everybody out from everywhere, from France, from Germany, and everybody wanted to win that Chevrolet Corvette Stingray. And I joined into the competition too, and so I did 5th place in this competition. And Herman Göllner, a good friend of mine who was in Stratton, he won it. And he did beautiful somersaults already at the time, and he was the first guy to do a Mobius flip, which is a twisted back flip, you know, up and twist in the air and land, you know. He was very good, and he was a fantastic skier also, and he ended up winning a Chevrolet Corvette and about $8,000 cash in 1971.
Wow, what a big deal.
Big deal, and I did 5th place, won a little bit of money too, and then my eyes opened and I said, wow, this is something to work for. So I went home to Austria and I was practicing as hard as I could and working on it as hard as I could. And then next year, in 1972, it was again in Waterville Valley where we had the championship, the freestyle championship. And we had other championships too, but the one that was sponsored by Chevrolet, you know, that was the big one. But in 72, they did not have a Corvette anymore. They had a Chevrolet Vega station wagon. But nevertheless, I was able to win that one, you know, and that was it really changed my life.
A great honor, yeah. And So from that point on, did you continue to instruct at Stratton? And
from that point on, I continued teaching in Stratton during the week. Weekends, many times we had competitions, and I was playing in a band too. I was very busy. And then I also formed the freestyle school, the freestyle skiing program in Stratton. I formed that in 1974. And I had the first freestyle skiers. There were 4 girls that wanted to learn all about it. And they came to a summer camp that I did then in Austria, you know. And I had a whole bunch of kids starting out, and in 5 years, I think we had like 70, 80 kids in the freestyle program.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this was all prior to the Stratton Mountain School, right? What?
Yeah, it was just by the ski school.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. But then I had some very capable people. One was Steve Kenny. He was organizing, a very good organizer, and he eventually, you know, when I got so busy with the Stratton Mountain Boys that I could not do both of it in good quality, I just gave the freestyle school away and said, Steve, you go and do that. And I was so busy with the administration of the band, because we had about 200 shows at the time all over the country.
Oh, wow.
You know? And it was a professional setup. I had to see that the 6 people that I had all get paid, you know, and it makes it worthwhile for them to come from Austria to America.
And you were the band manager,
I was
right?
the band manager. And
so you had a lot of...
musical leader and manager too, yeah.
Wow. Wow. And you were playing at Stratton a lot?
Yeah, we were, in the wintertime, we were playing 4 afternoons and 2 night shows.
Wow.
So yeah, we were very busy. And then at the time, yeah, in 1970, that was the first year I met my wife, and we got married in 72, you know, and then we had a little girl. She lives in Austria now, Gabriela. And so Norma was working at Nor's house all day long, and I was out in the ski slope all day long doing the freestyle teaching. And then at 4 o'clock come in and play music, you know. And 2 times a week it was the night show too. So when I came home,
you were tired.
I was hungry. So I started cooking, and because my wife had to take care of the baby, you know.
Yeah.
So I ended up becoming a chef, and I cooked, you know, I cooked myself steaks, huge pieces of steak, and that was so great. Because in Austria we couldn't get that good of meat at the time.
Yeah. And did you live up on the mountain at that point, or?
We always rented places. Yeah. We rented a place. One time it was called Fiddlesticks.
Sure.
In Barnville.
Right in Barnville.
Yeah. We rented that, and so. But anyway.
And where was Norma from originally?
Norma is originally from Brattleboro, or better, she was born in Wardsboro, and her family name is Robinson. You know, so it's the Robinson family from Wardsboro. And, well, she grew up and went to school in Brattleboro, and then she worked in wintertime. She worked with Harry, her cousin, and did the Norse house, you know. And they had Norse house already up on the mountain. And then Peter Brigham and Charlie Sonnenfeld, who were the original owners of Norse house, they got out of it. They were getting too old. And then Norma and Harry, they got together and started the new Norse house down in Barnville, you know. And so she ended up working over 40 years for Norse house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was an ideal situation too for us to work in the winter and then go to Austria in the summer.
Yeah.
And that kind of formed our life, you know, and also especially with our daughters. And though our daughters are 10 years apart, and part of that was we were traveling back and forth, you know, and with one baby, it was easy to do.
Manageable.
You know,
Yeah.
if you had a bigger family, it would be
More difficult.
More difficult, you know.
Yeah.
And so we did that years back, going back and forth, and we added on to our house in Austria. Also, that was in 1972, 73. I just wanted to make sure I have something over there in Austria, in case you never know what's happening,
Sure,
and
sure.
if everything works out all right or what have you,
Yeah.
you know. And I just wanted to have a base at home. And
How
then-
did Norma like Austria when you took
Oh,
her?
she loves it. Yeah, she loves Austria. She says she would move there in a minute and stay there. But
Yeah.
I always tell her, you got to be careful. America is a very, very beautiful country, and I like it. And there's so much variety and all the things that we can do here.
Right.
We should see that we can do both.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
because she would be ready if I say, let's go and live in Austria.
She'd go.
She would go.
Yeah.
But it's more like I am not totally ready because
Sure.
America is just, you know, I had so many opportunities and
Yeah.
I saw so much, and
Well, you have so many wonderful connections here and so many.
that too with my music. I have so many, and I still travel now. You know, we are gonna start again this year. In September, we're gonna be in Disney World, and we're gonna be there for 2 weeks and play music, and then in Greenville, South Carolina, and in Asheville, North Carolina, and we work our way up here.
Wow, wow. So tell me a little more about the Stratton Mountain Boys, and how many members do you have in the band now? And
Momentarily, there's just 4 of us and sometimes 5 of us. I have several musicians that are placed all over the country, you know. And so if I do a show down in Florida, we are 5, but I only travel with 4 because there's one that is a full-time member of Disney World. And,
can't
you know,
travel.
we were doing Disney World many a times. It was started already way back in the 70s, you know. And that was an interesting story too. We did a show in Disney Village, and it was right at the time where they were building the Epcot Center. And so we did our show, and we had those dignitaries from Epcot Center were coming to see our show. And they saw the show, and they said, that's it. This is the show that we need for Epcot Center, for the German pavilion. And so the guys came to me and approached me. They were that serious that we were supposed to be going to Disney World and become full-time members of Disney and play there for the rest of our life, kind of. You know? And I said no.
Yeah.
I said, no, I cannot do that.
Yeah.
I just did not want to be nailed down like that,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
because once you are in Disney, you have your 40-hour week schedule, and that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, you have maybe a simple life or whatever, but it was not my lifestyle. I
Sure.
did not.
You like your liberties.
I wanted to move around, and then I couldn't go back to Austria anymore, and that was much more important to me.
Sure.
You know. So, but it was in that same year. It was in April. I got a phone call from one of the managers of Epcot Center, and he called, Stefan, we know you told us you don't want to work full-time, but would you ever consider working for us as a consultant? We need your band. We need something that looks exactly like your band. Is there any chance of putting something like that together? And I said immediately, yes, you know. There was the thing, they would have done it anyway.
Sure.
In this case, it was, you know, it was not appreciated by every one of the band members at the time that I would go and help them.
Now, did some of the band members want to go ahead and join up?
Not at the time when we first were there. There was not one that wanted to do that full time.
Yeah.
They didn't mind to go there because we ended up going there for like 5 years, where we did the replacement. We did the vacation replacement for the band that we had put together. But no one wanted to do it full time. Not at the time. Later on, yes. See, I had a total of 180 musicians in the band.
Over the years?
Over the years.
Oh my God. What was the most that you had at any one time?
That was when Stratton was sponsoring us, and when Stratton paid for publicity and stuff. They were basically sponsoring us and helping us, and it was possible to have a good amount. You know, it was set up so that we had ski instructors that had the multiple talent of also playing the music, and that was the ideal thing, you know.
Yeah.
And later on, we kind of got away from the skiing, you know, because the music just started to be a primary thing, and you could not find anymore these kind of people
who could do both.
Could do both. I had to go and see to find the best musicians, whether they were ski instructors or not, you know. And then it also changed with the money stuff too, because the American dollar started dropping in the foreign markets, you know, so you couldn't pay people that well anymore, and it was harder to get the people.
Sure, sure.
Plus, I was always confronted with getting visas for the people, and that was a headache. Yeah. That was sometimes so difficult, you know, but I was always lucky. For some reason, it always.
So how long did Stratton sponsor you?
That was until about 1985, yeah. And then they just changed their concept, you know. They changed, you know, they became a total Vermont-type area, and that Austrian-type style was kind of...
put aside, or...
yeah, it was let go.
Yeah, yeah. Do you still perform there?
Lately we haven't. The last time we performed there was for the 50th anniversary of Stratton.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that was nice anyway. We had a good show there. It
Yeah.
was a tough one for me because the night before we had a show in Asheville, North Carolina. And so I had to drive all night and all day to make it here to Stratton.
Oh.
We quickly set up, and there it was, showtime, you know.
Oh.
But that's in this type of business, sometimes it's brutal.
Yeah, yeah.
Many times that I left from a show. One time I left a show up in Northern Peninsula, up in the Thousand Lake region in Wisconsin, and we had to get back to Stratton. So we started to drive at 12 o'clock midnight and drove all night. Everybody was sleeping and I drove. I was the night driver.
Yeah.
I drove until 9 o'clock the next morning, and then that's it. Now the other guys can drive.
Yeah, yeah.
And I took a nap. Yeah, we did that many times, that we were moving like 24 hours or what, you know. We would go to Florida, play at Disney World or play at Marco Island or those places where we just travel straight through.
Now what happens when you go back to Maria Alma? Do you play there?
Yes, I do.
And is there still a village band that...
There is a village band, yes, but I don't play in the village band. There's also a Heimatabend, which is similar to the show that we did in Stratton. And there's a lot of people that come to see that show, you know. The whole village square, there's thousands of people there, and they wanted to see that show. And I play there with the saw and with the alphorn, you know, sometimes the trumpet too, you know. And my daughter, Gabriela, she sings there. My grandson does the shoe-slapping dances.
Oh, wow.
And my son-in-law is also involved in it. So we do like a family music there.
Yeah. When did you get into playing the saw? How did that...
Yeah, that was interesting. One time I was climbing mountains over in Austria, and I went to a little mountain hut, And there was an accordion player, a button box player, and a guy with a saw. And I was already doing the Stratton Mountain Boys at the time, and we did the wooden laughter and the shoe-slapping dances and the yodeling. And then I thought, well, that would be good over in America to put that saw into the action, you know. And so I went and got myself a saw, and John, I tell you, it was catastrophic. When I first tried to learn that instrument, it was so bad. And my wife had to listen to that. I was determined. I want to learn that quick, you know, but it just didn't happen.
And were you able to get any lessons, or did you?
No, there was nobody to give lessons.
Did you know anybody in this country that played the saw?
No.
No.
No, I didn't. That was just total.
Yeah.
It just happened. But I figured, and then all of a sudden, it just clicked, just like that. And from then on, I could play pretty much anything, you know, like.
And how long have you been playing the saw?
Oh, it's about 25 years now.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's how we actually.
That's how we met. Yeah.
That was a wonderful evening, and you have continued to join us. We play occasionally down at Jake's, and it's always an honor to have you show up and play with us.
That's so much fun. It's great, even though it's different kinds of music, you know. But music is music. It always fits, you know.
It's always wonderful how it brings people together, and
And with the saw, I have played classical music. I had played hee-haw. It doesn't really matter, you know.
Edelweiss is your
Edelweiss,
classic.
Everybody likes Edelweiss.
Yeah. And Amazing Grace.
And that's so great because, like, Edelweiss is thing too. I'm very involved and friendly with the Trapp family, you know, up in Stowe. And
so tell us a little bit about that. How did you?
Yeah, Maria von Trapp, you know, when she first moved over here, or better, the whole family, and they were up in Stowe. They bought that little lodge there and a lot of land with it. And then when they had that and ran it as sort of bed and breakfast, and then it burned down. That was back in the early 80s. And then they quickly had to build a new lodge. And when they built a new lodge, they invited the Stratton Mountain Boys to entertain for the opening ceremony.
Oh.
And so that's how I got together with them, and with Maria also. And she told me the whole story, the way it happened, you know, with like the film and the musical and all. And she was complaining she was not getting any money out of it, you know. It was just, you know. But anyway, that just came about in, you know, in the talk.
Sure.
But meanwhile, I have been also playing music with a granddaughter of her, and that is Lisbeth von Trapp. And Lisbeth one time called me, and she knew that I was playing that saw, and she said, "Stefan, would you be interested in doing a CD with me? I like to have your saw on my CD, you know." And so Lisbeth von Trapp, she plays over there in Western Playhouse occasionally, and in Manchester and in this area, and naturally nationwide, you know. She's always on tour one way or another. And now, lately, last year, she moved in the summer to Austria. She spends 2 months in Austria now. And that was too. We were talking when I did the recording with her. She says, "Stefan, you live the right life. I like to do that too, to go to Austria for several months and live over there. That is my aim. I want to achieve that," she says. And last year, it was the first year that she and her husband moved to Austria, to Salzburg, and they rented a place there, and she performs doing concerts and stuff in Austria as well.
Good for her.
So I was just talking to her a couple of days ago, you know, so we're going to be, and then, last year we did a concert together. It was not a concert, it was a birthday party for some friends of hers, and she invited me to play the saw as she was doing some singing. And it was very interesting because we had some people, dignitaries from the music festivals of Salzburg, you know, singers, opera singers, and various very interesting people, you know. One guy came in, he had a huge voice. So me, always like to joke with people, you know. So I hear that voice, and so I say to him, "And what does anybody do with a voice like that?" And he says, "Sing," like that, huge, you know. And then we ended up doing a thing together with the Tsar, and we ended up doing one of those Ivan Reprov tunes, that Russian singer,
nice.
and with his strong voice, and I was doing the harmony with the Tsar. It came out really nice.
Yeah, nice.
So.
What are your aspirations now? You still are a ski instructor. You still play a lot of music.
I do ski instruct. I do carpentry work still, like what I did way back then. I don't do as much music anymore because doing 200 shows a year all over the country was a lot.
Yeah.
And so I just reduced on that. You know,
Yeah.
now I do a little tour, you know, with shows down in, as I mentioned, Disney and North Carolina, South Carolina, and Pennsylvania, and then in Massachusetts, in Williamstown, we do a couple of shows at the Williams Inn, and that's pretty much it for here in America. And in the summertime, I play in Austria while I'm there, so kind of fading it out a little bit.
Yeah, slowing down a little bit.
Slowing down. Yeah.
No, that's great.
I don't want to have the pressure anymore that I once had. You know,
Sure.
managing and running the whole thing. It was a lot.
Yeah. Well, Stefan, it is always a pleasure to chat with you, and I love hearing your stories. And we're going to hear a little bit of your saw playing, which will be a real treat. Thank you so much for coming and being here today.
Thank you, John. It's always a pleasure.
So, Stefan, tell me is this a regular carpentry saw? Is this a special saw for...
This particular saw, you could do carpentry work with it, but I have never really, on those teeth, done much carpentry work. And I don't really want to do it either because it's got to be perfect straight. And if you use it for carpentry work, you stand the chance that you jam it,
Slight bow to it.
and then it bends, and then it doesn't work right anymore. So even though when I transport it, I got to make sure, and I do make sure that it is totally perfectly straight, and then it functions best. You know?
I was just thinking how funny that your father was a carpenter, and here you are playing the saw rather than...
Yeah, I was talking with my dad about that, and I said to him, you know, when business and music was going really good, you know, I still do the saw, but I make even more money now.
So describe a little bit what you're doing. You're getting a certain flex with your thumb?
What's necessary is you make an S-curve in the saw, and you cause, or you create a tension. And you create a tension, and right where that S-curve breaks, this is where the tune comes out. And then I add vibrato with the knee. Like, for instance, without. And then I add the vibrato. So it's a matter of controlling it. That was the most difficult thing when I learned about it at first, you know. I wanted to get a certain tune, but I couldn't find it. I did not know how it would come out.
How to manipulate it.
Up until it got totally into my nature. I can play the scale, for instance. There's 2 octaves on this particular saw. Like, look. more like that.
Nice. Can you play Edelweiss for us?
Edelweiss.
That's the most beautiful I've ever heard it. That was great.
Yeah, we didn't have any side noises or
No distractions.
it's no distraction.
And we haven't been drinking.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
What else would you like to play for us?
Oh, I don't know. There's so many tones.
How long have you had this particular saw?
Since the beginning.
This
I
is
have a few more,
Yeah.
but
This is your
this is my favorite.
Yeah.
Look how it looks like, really rusty, old.
Looks like
I gotta
you.
clean it. Yeah, that's right. It fits to me.
This is your Stradivarius.
That's right, yeah.
Amazing Grace.
Amazing Grace.
When I get my courage, I'm going to play Amazing Grace with you, but not yet. Beautiful, beautiful. I have to say one little side note. One of the first times I heard you play that was a night down at Jake's, and there was a lot of commotion in the bar and drinking and whatnot, and a number of people had been playing throughout the evening, and the commotion carried on. And you sat down and played Amazing Grace, and the whole bar went silent.
You know, I did that sometimes very purposely in big shows, in Oktoberfests, where
Yeah.
you expect a lot of people that had a little bit too much to drink.
Yeah.
And I always have a microphone here, and I have it amped with thousands of watt going out there, and I always have huge speaker systems, you know, and I would just go, and especially that tune Amazing Grace, people would not know at first what's happening, but I guarantee you, and I was just waiting for silence, you know, I just go and still like that. By that time, everything is silent, you know, and then I can just carry on, and I carry on with no rhythm, like ad libitum, like.
Yeah.
Now the band comes in. Then there's rhythm, guitar, bass, drums, and the whole works. And then I played, and you heard the key change now a bit, up half a tone. And then I go up another half a tone when I have my whole orchestra and the third part.
That's wonderful.
And then everybody can sing along too on that last part.
Yeah, which of course they do.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Stefan. I just want to, as a parting gift, I want you to take home some of our cheese.
Oh.
And this is our smoked Gouda and our traditional Gouda. I know you've had it before.
I come here right after for that cheese. I love it. Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bam 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 doo dee da da da.